going to analyze my biggest and most interesting hand from a 2-3 session I played at Ocean's 11 Casino in San Diego. First going over my original thought process while I was in the hand, as well as the result, then going through a much more in-depth hand analysis while I was off the table. Some of you watching might not enjoy studying poker nearly as much as actually playing it, but as a statistician myself, I do truly enjoy performing poker hand analysis by comparing all the different possible lines with the end goal of figuring out which play was the most optimal. The hand starts off with the under the gun straddle on, and me in the big blind with ace-king offsuit. The big blind is actually $3 and not $4 as shown, but this program that recreates live poker hands doesn't have a 2-3 option, only a 2-4. A player in late to middle position raises it to 17. I've played 3 hours up to this point, and my read on this player was he was a typical semi-thinking tight player for this limit type. He likes to limp what he deems are his marginal hands, like small pocket pairs and suited connectors, and raise his higher pairs and big Broadway type hands. The smallest size of 17 makes me think he's toward the bottom of that raising range, not queens through aces for sure. My experience leads me to suggest players would tend to raise much bigger than 3 times with their premium hands, especially when the straddle's on. The action folds to a senior citizen in the small blind who calls the raise. This player type is like many older players, call happy and very passive. Having the stack sizes being halved with the straddle on, combined with a good amount of money in the pot already, 3-betting and getting it all in pre-flop if needed is clearly the better option, compared to calling and going 4 ways out of position. I make it 75, which I feel was a good sizing, and we end up getting called by both the raiser and the small blind. I now have almost exactly a pot-sized bet left of 230, with the raiser covering us. The old timer only has a third pot-sized bet left, so I wasn't even worried about losing to him, and I will admit his hand range during the analysis for simplicity. The range of hands I put villain on started with jacks, which is very player dependent because many players are tentative with jacks, and others are absolutely thrilled and want to get it in pre-flop. Then going down to middling pairs of 10s and 9s. Pairs any lower than that, I suspected this player would either limp or fold after I raised. I'm also definitely putting him on the ultimate trouble hand of ace-queen, then also ace-jack and king-queen suited, because they just look a little too pretty to fold. Worst Broadway hands, I think he folds. I am also going to put him on ace-king, because I saw him only call an open raise with ace-king and fold to a cold 3-bet earlier where he actually showed his hand. Seems to me the player type that's only willing to get it all in when he has aces, kings, or queens. We then hit simulate and see our equity is pretty good at 56%. But let's now see the flop. Flop comes queen 8-4 all diamonds and the small blind checks. We have a very crucial card in the king of diamonds, and in real time I knew this was a great spot for me to shove. I can surely represent aces, kings, queens, ace-queen, or ace-king of diamonds, and put a lot of pressure on villain's middle pocket pairs to fold, even if he has a diamond. Plus, if he has ace-king or jack without a diamond, he will for surely fold. I also was almost certain I would be getting 2-to-1 odds on hands villain connected with, and would shove if I checked, like a queen or having the ace of diamonds. Meaning I would call a bet from him anyway if I checked, so if I have any fold equity whatsoever, I should make the shove myself and deny my opponent a chance at winning the huge pot that is already there. So we go all in, and luckily get exactly what we want, and both players end up folding. We're back at Poker Cruncher just to confirm my on-table thought process, and we put in the flop, then hit calculate, boom. We see our overall equity went slightly down from 56% to 48%, but we really want to separate villain's range into hands he will call our shove, and hands he will fold. Let's start with his calling range. I think he will fold all combinations of pocket nines, call pocket tens only if he has a diamond, and then also call jacks only if he has a diamond. Some players will call jacks without a diamond, maybe even tens or nines without a diamond, just praying we miss with ace king and are gambling with a flush draw, which is exactly what our hand is now. But this player is tight, and I believe he will be folding, thinking he is at best 50-50 against our current hand. All queens should call. We just have to eliminate the combinations he can't possibly have, which are any with the ace of clubs since we have it, and any with the queen of diamonds since that's on the flop. Ace king should only call if he has a diamond, and we have the king, so he would only call if he has the ace. No possible combinations of ace king of diamonds, so he folds all ace king suiteds. Ace queen suited obviously calls. Ace queen of hearts or spades. Ace jack of diamonds is jumping in his seat and calling, but all other combos of ace jack suited are clearly folding, having whiffed the flop. King queen suited is calling. It is just not possible for him to have diamonds because we block the king and the board blocks the queen. We hit calculate and we see we are getting better than 2-1 odds against his continuing range, and would be getting the odds to call even if villain shoved himself. Almost 3-2 odds actually. Looking in the upper right hand corner, we see 22 total combinations calling us. So let's now construct villain's folding range and see how many combinations we are getting fold equity from, which we decided were all possible combos of pocket nines, tens and jacks without a diamond, ace queen doesn't fold, ace king folds without a diamond, plus we exclude any that have the ace of clubs, ace king of hearts and spades fold, then the ace jacks that are not clubs or diamonds fold, and then that's the entire assumed folding range. We hit calculate and see we only have 60% equity against villain's missed hands. So that is a huge chunk of equity we are denying by going all in here. Also looking at his total combinations in the upper right hand corner of this range, we see that there are 20 combinations versus the 22 from the previous calling range, meaning we are getting folds almost half the time, which makes this clearly the only option to make with this hand with this specific board texture. That king of diamonds really made things easy for us though. What happens if we actually had the king of hearts instead? Should we pull the trigger and rip it all in as a total bluff, knowing that we have very little equity when called? Or just check and hope for a check back from villain, but obviously fold to any bet he makes? Well, let's find out. His folding range, though, will now include less combinations because we would not have the king flush draw blocker. So we have to exclude the one extra ace-king combination with a heart. Plus, the ace-king of hearts itself is now not possible, dropping us from 20 combinations to 18. Then calculating our equity, we see we are getting crushed, even by villain's bad hands. Against his good hands of tens and jacks with a diamond, all the possible ace-queens, ace-king, when now he could have either card be a diamond. He just can't have the ace of clubs or king of hearts in his hand. Ace-king of diamonds is now a possible nut hand in calling. All ace-queen possibilities. Ace-jack of diamonds, of course. Then king-queen. It just can't be diamonds or hearts now since we have the king of hearts. Calculating, and a very, very low 15.3% equity when called. Not very good at all. There's also now 23 combinations of continuing hands instead of 22 from earlier, meaning villain will now be calling our bluff a little more often and folding a little less often. Now the decision is not so easy, and we need to perform a more exact EV calculation to see if whether bluffing all in or checking is the more profitable play. Our first option would be to shove. The amount we would win or the EV, would be broken down into two possible outcomes. The first and better outcome would be the probability he folds times the given size of the pot. The second outcome would be the probability he calls times the probability we win the pot, multiplied by the pot plus the opponent's call, minus the probability we lose, multiplied by the size of our bet. This would be the 18 combinations of folds divided by the total combinations of 41 times the pot size of 230, plus the 23 combinations of calls divided by the 41 total combinations, times our equity when called of 15.3%, multiplied by the amount we would win of 460, minus the villain's equity multiplied by the size of our bet of 230 that we would lose. This equals $100.98 minus $69.80 for a total of $31.18 for a positive EV play. This bluff is mostly profitable because we expect villain to fold a good amount of the time at around 44%. But we need to calculate our second option expected value of checking and hoping for a free showdown. The amount we would win would be the probability that villain checks, which I will assume to be his entire folding / non-continuing range, because I don't think this specific player will bluff at this scary of a board. We have to times that by our equity from that range of 35.53%, multiplied by the pot of 230. If villain put any money into the pot, we would fold, and our EV would just be 0. This ends up being slightly more profitable at $35.88. But since the options are so close, I now actually think we need to go back to the forgotten senior citizen player in the small blind that is actually still in the hand. Denying his possible equity in the already $230 pot, I believe, will make up for less than the $5 difference, making shoving actually a slightly better option, even though we have very little equity when called. But to be 100% honest, if I had the King of Hearts, I would have not gone through with the big bluff and just disappointingly checked with my little equity and looked to fold. This hand analysis example illustrates the importance of studying poker hands off the table and knowing what the better theoretical play truly is. This allows you to know what to do next time in a similar situation and continually get better as a poker player. So that was the main hand of the night for me, but I ended up playing for 9 hours late into Friday night, early into Saturday morning, where the game was really good. It had loose players, bad players, drunk players, and one player in particular that was all three. He was sitting to my direct left, and I was waiting about 5 hours into the night waiting for a big pair against him. He already bought in 3 times, and a player that just sat down ended up taking his last buy-in with pocket 10s and stacked him. So I wait 5 hours, a player sits down and waits 5 minutes, but that's how poker works sometimes. Just hopefully next time it works out better. I ended up basically getting blinded away the rest of the night and didn't pick up hands. I got down to $200 twice and rebought to a full $300. So I ended up cashing out for $324, but I was in for $500, so it made the session negative $176. And my first session, I ended up $184 positive after 7 hours. So this brings my vlog to a grand total of a whopping $8 positive over 16 hours of play.
It's like $1 an hour.